I'd like the Australian people, I'd like the world to see the injustice, the basic lack of humanity that's happening just 74 kilometres across from the Queensland coast to our nearest neighbour, West Papua, which shares with the eastern end of the island, Papua New Guinea. It shares a common heritage, a common cultural Melanesians, and they're not Javanese, they're not Balinese, they're Melanesians. But unfortunately, in 1969, they were incorporated against their will, against the majority of the West Papuans, into the Greater Indonesia. And that was, as my film explains, through the main character, which Hugh Lunn, a journalist that went there at age 27 in 1969 to report on the United Nations overseeing of the so-called act of free choice. And as Hugh reports and says in my film, it was anything but an act of free choice. So I'd like the world to see 50 years after the West Papuans were sold down the river, that what the situation is there, and to give them a much better deal and a genuine fair referendum now.
Well, David, there's a very striking line in your documentary pointing out that Australians know more about the surface of the moon than they do about West Papua. Why don't Australians know more, given it lies just 150 kilometres to the north of the Australian mainland?
Well, I think until your program took this under its wing, and I was interviewed with ABC Radio on Friday here in Melbourne for the launch or the premiere of the film, the media is lacking in that regard and doing its job, and also our politicians, both sides of the political divide. The Labor governments, when they've been in power from 1969, 1970, and Liberal National Country Party governments have done nothing about the horrible injustice of what's been West Papua's fate till now.
So you're trying to change this, increase awareness. What in particular do you think will resonate with Australian viewers?
I think that Australians are a decent people still, and there are a lot of people that don't like our refugee policy, and they, even more so when they discover what is happening in West Papua, that has been basically turned into a gulag. And that's not a cliche term that I use lightly at all, because if you're a West Papuan and you dare to raise the Morning Star flag, that's the independence flag of West Papua, you can go to jail for 15 years, which means in the case of women, that they're likely to be raped and sexually violated. In the case of men, they're going to be tortured, and horrible things are going to happen to them, which has been happening to West Papuans for the last 50 years since Indonesia took over and controls West Papua. The same as what they were doing in East Timor until they had their referendum in 1999. And so I think Australians will are decent. We've still got that old aspect about us of mateship and why our diggers went off to World War I and World War II, and I think that they discover what's happening to our nearest neighbours who supported us against the Japanese invading in World War II. They will, in fact, I hope, put pressure on our politicians and ask our politicians to really get their act together on West Papua.
Well, just over the weekend, dozens were arrested, accused of treason, and the list of political prisoners is growing significantly. Do you have hope that this will change in the near future?
You've always got to live with hope, Yvonne, in order to be able to live with yourself. And I've seen a lot of dastardly things in my lifetime as a filmmaker of the last 40 years. And I believe that the little candle of hope and aspiration within the West Papuan chest beats strong and hard. And those people are not going to give up. They didn't give up in 1969, though the world turned a blind eye on their suffering for all these 50 years, but they will continue to, because the young generation are imbued with a sense of independence. It's basic to the human condition to all of us to want to have our freedom, to be able to want to express our culture and to without live in fear and terror of practising our everyday lives. And that will be the mainspring that will push West Papua, even though it means a lot of deaths, and I don't want any of that to happen. It means a lot of imprisonment to continue, because West Papua Papua is the prize. It's the jewel in the royal crown of the Indonesian archipelago and the Indonesian nation. There's more money comes from the resources of West Papua, in particular one gold mine at Timika in West Papua called Freeport Indonesia, than comes in from all the other incomes that the Indonesian government gets and its taxes there. And that's been operating like that. It's gone from being 2 mountains 4 miles high, the largest deposit of gold and copper on the planet. It's now a big hole in the ground, an open-cut mine that the Indonesians are still tunnelling and still bringing out 1,000 ounces of gold a year. You know, it's incredible.
It is indeed. Now, David, what reception have you had to the film so far?
Well, it's early days yet, Yvonne. I brought it down to Melbourne to have its world premiere here yesterday in Melbourne, and we had 150 people turn up for that there, which was pretty good, using social media. And good old Rupert Murdoch doesn't give me a sort of a free plug these days, but it's been heartening to see that response, and I think that we'll take it around the traps and alternative media and have screenings in the main capitals around Australia, and get word out on West Papua, and hopefully good old Ida Buttrose, notwithstanding your budget being cut, Yvonne, she'll get the checkbook out and buy the film.